Welcome, Shelly. Thank you so much for being on my show. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Dolly. Thank you for having me. I'm excited about this topic.
Yeah, me too. I've been looking forward to it for quite some time. So, before we get started, would you please introduce yourself to the audience and tell them a little bit about what you do?
Yes, definitely. Well, my company, I actually have a speakers company where we represent professional speakers, and we don't have any youth speakers yet. But I'll kind of share a story of someone that I work with that will kind of go in alignment with what we're talking about today. And I've been doing this now for about 7 years. We're going into our seventh year. And we also work with the Veterans Chamber of Commerce, as you know, so we're able to represent military speakers and authors. And I'm here in California, and it's just been a phenomenal and fun opportunity to do what I do because I get to meet people all over the world.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I've seen some of the speakers that you've had on, and they do an amazing job. So, the reason I
Oh,
asked
thank
you to come
you.
onto the show is because, of course, you are very knowledgeable in this topic. And I have noticed that there are a lot of youth who are interested in starting their own business and being an influencer, and speaking is
Hmm.
a big, big part of that. But
Oh,
you can't
yeah.
yeah, you can't just dive in. You have to have a certain level of confidence for that, right?
Confidence, and there's so much more to it as far as being a public speaker, let alone being, when you think about a child or, so I've seen speakers as young as 6, online. I've seen them as old as 18, when you talk about our youth, and they don't have the life experience that we do. So what they're probably going to be talking about is something that they've learned from their parents, or maybe a tragedy, which is unfortunate, or they just have that gene that is like, it's like, where did this kid come from? Because they're just so inspiring, and they just get, maybe they've read books, they've, taught themselves, or they've actually taken classes. I know there are some organizations out there that teach children or kids those kind of skills.
Right. Yeah, and I've even seen Toastmasters for children in
Hmm.
rec centers, and some of the elementary schools are starting to have debate teams, which is
Yes.
where they can definitely hone those skills. So I've also seen a lot of kids on the TED Talk stage.
TED Talks.
That is
Yes.
amazing
Yeah.
because you can't just get onto a TED
And now,
Talk.
well,
Yeah,
and not only that, they have to be confident. They have to, you have to give this speech where it's going to be viewed by millions of people. And kind of going back to your point, where, even the debate teams, that prepares kids, and it's almost like they find their voice. And even, if they're, let's say, if they're going to be speaking at an assembly. I mean, I remember my high school years, which was a long time ago. But I remember some of the girls and the boys that would get up and speak. And I thought, I just admired what they were doing because I knew I couldn't do it. I would be mortified if I had to get up on stage when I was younger, because I couldn't find my voice. But yeah, it's an interesting field, especially when kids get started young.
yeah, yeah. And here you are leading a whole bunch of public speakers.
I know that's so funny too, because, and I grew up in a household where I'm Italian. So I grew up in a household where children should be seen and not heard. So for me, my voice was kind of stifled. Plus I had loud Italian people around me all the time. So they really couldn't hear me talk. But after I went into my career and, doing what I'm doing now, I found my voice.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I love what you're doing with it because you're helping so many people. So let's
Oh,
talk
thank you.
about, you're welcome. Let's
Yeah,
talk about getting a child to hone in on those skills. How would you help them?
definitely.
Yeah.
Well, first of all, I would recommend that if, there's children who either have the desire to get up and speak, or maybe their parents see something in them that they don't see in themselves, and they're kind of helping or supporting or kind of pushing their child into doing, some kind of speaking, whether it's at school or church or, different places where they can speak publicly. But in preparation, I think it's important that they look at this as though, okay, what's my message? And, what is it that is, powerful or meaningful that they can get up and talk about comfortably and confidently so that they can inspire other people, right? Just like people that, are your age or my age, where, we have those life experiences and we feel either we're comfortable to get up and talk about it, or if it's an expertise. And kids that are young, if they're just getting started, just knowing what the content is that you want to share, and also having that confidence and the support around them too. The parents, maybe, a coach or someone that can, like you mentioned, Toastmasters too. That's a great platform.
The thing I think that kids think of first when they hear, public speaking, or if they think, oh, I'm going to become a public speaker, they think of the glamour of it, because it looks so easy. And they look so fun because people laugh and they ask questions, and then people rush up to the speaker and, they just want their signature or their, I don't know, something, So
yeah, kind of like a celebrity.
Right. Yeah. So one of the things that I've noticed is that speakers are admired most when they have really good sources about what they're talking about.
The content is, and something that's going to move an audience and be just so powerful. Like, for example, and we were talking a little bit earlier, there's a young man that I found on, kind of in preparation of our conversation today. And this guy was at 11 years old. He was on Good Morning America with Robin Roberts, who's one of my favorites on Channel 7. And he got up there, and he is this Instagram star, and his name is Naeem, and I hope I'm pronouncing it right, Naeem Hudson, and he's also known as King Na. And I guess, on Instagram, he's made a name for himself, but he's such an inspiring young man. And he said that his father was the one who inspired him to really get up and share.
Wow, that's incredible. At 11 years old, I can't imagine.
At 11 years old, yeah. And he said, because Robin asked him, well, what inspired you to be a public speaker? And he says, he goes, I used to be goofy and I dance in front of a mirror, and I thought, you know what, hey, I kind of like this. That's, and that's when he found his confidence to become a public speaker.
I find that being a child is very powerful when you allow a child to reach for something that you as a parent or as an adult would probably be scared to do. I was just telling my daughter the other day, because she said, hey, I want to start this business. Tell your friends I am going to do graphics for them, and I'm going to do movie films and things for their businesses. I said, okay. And it was just mesmerizing because I thought, she has no fear. She's just going for it.
Isn't that awesome? Yeah. And that speaks to the movie that she made, or the documentary, which I thought was, that was powerful, Dolly, the way that, and you even were surprised that your daughter was the narrator. Yeah. So, and here she is in this documentary that's probably going to get thousands of views.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
It's very inspiring, and I know she's my child, so I'm biased, but
of course,
she's not the only one, and I recognize that. Like this child, Naeem, 11 years old, to get up on a stage or just to do the simple act of standing in front of the mirror and allowing yourself to be goofy in front of that mirror and love yourself that way.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
and not only that, they don't have an audience around them. Can you imagine the fear? Because actually speaking is the number one fear next to death. People do not like to public speak. And these kids, they have, when you think about it, some of these kids, when we're like in awe of these kids that can get up and they're fearless, like you said, your daughter is fearless when it comes to that. And, the social media, I think, has really given a lot of these amazing kids who are influencers, it's given them a platform, to speak their mind, to, share what their feelings are, and very meaningful things. So it's kind of interesting. And even if you remember back to in Florida, the Parkland event that happened, the school shooting, and there was one girl that emerged, Emma Gonzalez. And I think, that we can all remember that picture of her on stage crying, and she was silent for some of it. And just the words that she spoke, talking about, the incident, and it was just powerful.
Yeah, I definitely remember that.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you can tell that she was speaking from the heart and that she was allowing herself to be vulnerable, which is something that adults have a huge struggle with.
Yes, I agree because I think a lot of us adults, we're because we don't want to kind of show ourselves, we want to kind of keep certain things to, either, protected and confidential. But I know that kids, they're more comfortable and free talking about, certain things, within, and I'm sure, once, kids get up there and they do start speaking professionally, they're going to be coached by someone so that they make sure that they, don't say things that are inappropriate, for the stage.
Yeah. And I feel
Yeah.
like that allowing yourself to be vulnerable, especially as a child, comes
Hmm.
through in a very powerful way. And I think that's what makes
Yeah.
that connection with the audience. And it also allows people to relate because a lot of us have vulnerabilities and we have things that have affected us or impacted us in a certain way and we don't talk about it, but as soon as the public speaker says, hey, I went through this and this is how I felt, then you're just like, wow, yeah,
You
me
feel
too.
connected. Yeah. And it's like, oh my gosh, they're just like us. They breathe just like us. And, but they're up there telling their story. And that vulnerability, I know even with, a lot of our clients, they have that factor when they're up speaking and that vulnerability where they share stories or examples. And I think the audience can relate to that a lot easier than somebody just kind of throwing or preaching at them, not preaching in as far as in a church, but I'm saying like just, spewing out information.
Right.
I think it's more powerful when it has a powerful message.
Right. You know, one thing that I tell my children is even in text messages, when you're writing someone, it's like you're speaking to them only in text,
Yeah.
you know? So I tell them words matter. And sometimes,
Yes,
oh
they
my gosh, Mom,
do.
it doesn't matter. It's just a text message. And I say, no, but you're
Words do
building
matter.
that habit, right? Because
Yeah.
you might yeah, you might use a different word that doesn't convey the strong feeling behind what you're trying to say.
Hmm.
So can you talk a little bit, for especially if parents are watching this with their children, about the importance of the message and how it's delivered with a source behind it, because we don't want to just share ideas or beliefs.
Right.
We want to share something that has been proven.
Mhm.
Yeah, right. So
Oh, yeah.
otherwise, people don't listen. They're like, "Oh, that's just your opinion," right?
Exactly. And that's a really good point, Dolly, because, a lot of people that are, again, that are older than 18 that are out speaking, they check their facts, meaning, the information that they're sharing on stage. They also practice ongoing. And I think with, especially with kids, where parents are, kind of coaching their kids and giving them the guidance that they need to, to speak at that assembly or, speak at church or whatnot. It's important that they understand that what they do share on stage, it really should be something that they research, rehearse, making sure that it's a powerful message, but also, facts that have been verified. And there are plenty of places that that you can find information that's accurate. Even doing interviews, with people that just to to conduct to gather information and maybe share it on stage.
Yeah, definitely. That's a really good point. And I've learned that by doing interviews like these. Uh,
Yeah.
and it actually, because like you said, people are so afraid of speaking in public. I was that person. I actually still feel the jitters every time.
Oh,
I don't know why.
but you're great at speaking, Dolly. I mean, you go live on your Instagram and you have, the shows that you do. You've got it.
Yeah, but I don't know, for some reason that the butterflies come and everything, and my greatest fear is stuttering too much, because that was one of my challenges when I began
Oh, yeah.
speaking. The other thing was reversing words, and I still
Oh, okay.
so so I have to practice and practice and practice, just simply by doing it. and taking it and
Yes.
being willing to look like a fool sometimes by saying things backward or stuttering. Um,
Yeah. So
but
you just make fun of it or just, oh, you know what? I didn't mean that.
right.
And it's an interesting point that you brought that up because I'm actually working with an improv coach. And I told her that, because I have my podcast show, I felt it was important for me to, kind of loosen up a little bit as a speaker and presenter on my podcast. And the one thing that I noticed I said a lot was, and and that's something that I've been working on and trying to correct. So like for you, same thing where we're more critical of ourselves. And then a lot of people don't really notice it because they're just in awe of you being on stage or being, the host of a show and that you're doing it and you're changing lives.
That's absolutely true. I think that when the message is powerful, people
Mm-hmm.
don't hear all the errors. You might notice them, but they hear something
Yeah.
totally different. It's funny you were saying that you say a lot of ums and because those
Yes.
two are the most repeated words from my behalf. I cannot
Oh.
believe how much I say that, and as I'm editing each video, I'm cringing and I'm thinking, how in the world?
Oh.
Where did that come from?
Yeah. Or
When,
why did I say that so many times?
right.
Yeah. My son and I were editing a show the other day from my podcast, and because he does my editing, he's 18. So he's a young adult. And he was counting. He's like, okay, mom, you said, one, two, and he's counting as he's doing the editing. And I'm thinking, okay, I've got to figure out how to not say that. And this is a good lesson for kids too, I think, that are considering speaking, where maybe they say or or maybe they have another word that they use frequently. And from my actually see, and I said from my the coach that I'm working with, the improv coach, she was saying, you know what? It's okay. Just be awkward, be vulnerable, don't worry about the words that you're saying. So for the kids out there that are thinking of speaking, or maybe parents that are helping their children, I think that it's probably a good thing just to continue to practice and try and find out what are those habits that we have and work on them.
Very
Yeah.
good. Yeah, absolutely. So let's say I have my 13-year-old who is very active in public speaking at her school, but she wants to go pro. Can we
Mm.
define what pro is for a child speaker, or how to become a pro speaker?
Yes. And that is a great question, Dolly. A lot of kids that are speakers out there right now that are pros and they've been on stages with thousands of people. There's a couple of different elements. Either they've had a horrific or tragic accident or something happened to them or a group of people that they found their voice and they wanted to speak out. There are other kids that have become a sensation, kind of like I mentioned earlier with King. I can't remember his name now. I know I said it earlier. King Na, and he's an Instagram star. So the social media aspect of it helps them to elevate and amplify their brand, so to speak, or to become a pro. So there's a couple of different ways of looking at it. To be a pro, you want to be that person who doesn't say the ums, or knows the material, studies it, practices, and they're a pro because they get up there and they just do it time and time again without maybe a little bit of fail, but not often. And then there's that celebrity factor where a pro can become a celebrity speaker or well known on social media by doing Facebook Live, Instagram Live, and other platforms that they can use to get their messaging out, and especially on YouTube. We've heard about YouTube sensations, and a lot of these kids that are doing it, they are pros. They've learned, and they each have their own story. That's what's so cool
Yeah,
of how they started.
yes, it is incredible. The other
Yeah.
question I have is, when you first get paid as a speaker, I've heard there's
Mhm.
a huge range of how much to expect or how much you should charge. Do you have any advice
Yeah.
about that?
I do. And a lot of people think that, every time I speak, I'm going to get paid. That's not really true. You could, but you're going to really limit yourself where you speak. And you could have some wonderful opportunities that maybe it will result in something after you speak. And maybe you're not being paid, it might be pro bono. When it comes to kids, just like work, they have to have a work permit if they're a certain age. In fact, I had a 17-year-old that I was working with, and her father was her agent. So I really worked with the father. And his daughter, when she would be paid, it would go into an account for her. So speaking fees could be anywhere from, depending on the content that's being shared, the amount of time that they're speaking on stage, the travel involved, and it really is kind of customized for each one. But they want to have a baseline, like a threshold. Like, for example, if let's take your daughter, for example, let's say, she's 13, she's got a great message, she has all the confidence in the world, and that when she gets up on stage, she's going to deliver. Well, maybe that's, $1,000, for a half hour talk or an hour talk. Now I say 1,000, I'm not saying that they'll be paid that. That's just kind of an example. I mean, it could be less, it could be more. It just depends. But it really comes down to the negotiating. So if they have someone like a parent that's negotiating for them, then that would be something that they really need to work out with maybe an attorney, making sure, just tax implications and all of that. They need to make sure they understand.
Okay. So do you happen to know if children or child speakers are paid usually less than adults, or does it not really matter? Is it all about the message?
It really would be based on the message, their celebrity status. And then also, I think it would be probably less than what an adult speaker would make, simply because not that because it's a child speaking, but they don't have that life experience. And sometimes the life experience, the expertise, the background, whatever an adult would be providing on stage probably is going to be different than what a child speaker would be bringing to a stage. So I guess I would probably want to do some research to see if that is the case. If a child speaker could make as much as a regular speaker, but my thinking would be probably not at this point.
Okay.
Unless they're a celebrity, if they're a celebrity speaker, then I would imagine that they could make a lot of money.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And a lot of money, I guess, can also be defined differently, because some people are in the, I don't know, $50,000 range, somewhere in
Some of them. Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them are, absolutely. And, just like the King Na, I mean, I'm sure he's making really good money because of his message and the number of speeches that he's given too.
That's true. So is there a way, how do you find out? Because most of that information is usually private, right?
It would be private, and it's really based on, who's representing that child. So if it's the parent, or if they have an agent, or they have a publicist, they will work out a plan. And then what happens is, they do have to have an account set up. And I'm not an attorney. I don't know exactly what they would, all the details of what they would need to do, but they would need to make sure that that money is accounted for. And then, obviously it would go into a special account for them for when they turn 18.
Yeah. I learned about this when my daughter started taking acting classes, and she was thinking of the behind the scenes acting. And yeah, so I do know that there is an account that's set up, and parents cannot touch it. And
that's right.
Like that money, because in the Addams Family, I can't remember his name.
Yeah, I don't remember his name
or the character's name. He made so many episodes, and we were all thinking he was a millionaire. And when he turned 18, he found out he was cleaned out because his parents dipped into his account. And that case is what led to the creation of that law to protect, artist kids, or children from ending up with nothing after all those years of work. So I do know about that account.
That is, and that's a really powerful message there, because I think, a lot of parents that, they have kids that have talent that can get up and speak, or they can become a celebrity. It's important for the kids to know too. They need to understand, this is their money, and they're the ones doing the work and performing. And, granted, there's some things that the parents are doing too that they should be reimbursed for, and their time should be taken into account as well. And again, I don't know how that works, but that's something that we should find out.
Yeah, definitely. It's at least just knowing that the child's money is protected from everyone, including the parents. Yeah.
Oh, definitely.
Let's see.
Yeah.
What other tips can you share with us about children speaking in public?
I would really want to just encourage any child or young adult that's out there who feels led to really get up and talk with audiences, whether it's 10 people or 10,000. Don't be afraid. Build up that confidence so that you feel comfortable enough. If your message is that important, and not just to you, but to where people can just take that information and change their lives, or it's going to help them, whether it's in their business, their relationships, or maybe their career path. I mean, there's so many different types of speakers out there. So no matter how big the audience is, always know that each and every time that you get up there, you're going to get better and better and better, and you're going to learn, and it's going to just continue. And if you have fun and you look at this as though it's something that it's not a job, it's something that you're led to do, then it probably will lead into being a career for you as an adult.
Yeah, absolutely. That's golden words of wisdom right there. Can you talk a little bit about what the benefits are for speakers to work with you?
Sure. So, speakers agencies, I mean, they're all over the country. And like with us, we are a speaker management company. And when we work with a client, and I mentioned the 17-year-old that I work with, she was a singer, and we did a lot of work together. And, of course, everything went through her dad. And then, of course, I worked with his daughter. So as far as, the benefits, when we work with a booking, so let's say if we're working with a organization or an event planner, we maximize everything that can happen. So we make sure that they have, if there's a newsletter, we want to make sure our clients in the newsletter and promoted on their social media platforms. And then if we can do other things for them to get publicity or PR, then we'll definitely, factor that in. So it's kind of fun because every single booking is different. And the benefits are endless because we can always find things that are going to help to amplify, whether it's our client or that 17-year-old that was singing. We look for ways to really just work with them and customize each and every booking for them.
That sounds really good. And it also sounds like it takes a lot of the burden of having to do all that legwork for the speaker.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's what we do. So we work directly with the event planner or, the organization and make all of the arrangements. So really all of our client has to do is show up and bring their game.
Awesome. That sounds wonderful. So, and if somebody's been inspired to go and, work with you, how can they find you?
Oh, thanks, Dolly. So they could go to luminaryspeakers.com. So that's luminaryspeakers.com. And then my email is luminaryleaders@gmail.com.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Do you have any last tips before we go?
Gosh, the tip I have is for people to go watch your daughter's documentary.
Oh, thank you.
I think, and there are some kids in there. These are kids that were vulnerable in that documentary, and the narration of your daughter. I think kids could really learn from that. So I'd say my tip would be to go watch your daughter's documentary.
Thank you so much, and thank you so much for being on the DaliTalks Show.
Oh, thank you, Dolly. I had fun. Thank you.
Well, there you have it, folks. Shelly Harrison, the owner of Luminary Leaders, has shared some wonderful tips in regards to, public speaking and being a child public speaker, because this is something that's happening a lot more than it used to, because we're seeing this a lot more pop up. There are people who are under the age of 18 who are being given platforms to speak their minds, and they're using it so well, but there are others who want to get to that level. So Shelly has shared some really valuable tips on how to get started. Remember, she said, have a solid message, make sure that you have your facts straight, practice, and use your knowledge and what you believe in to deliver your message. So if you're interested in reaching out to Shelly, go to luminaryspeakers.com and check out what she has to offer. I know that she doesn't coach minors right now, but she's definitely somebody you can reach out to for guidance. If you like this video, subscribe to the channel. Click that little bell so you can get notified every time a new video is posted. And don't forget to check out DaliTalks.com. Subscribe for my newsletter so that you can get updates on upcoming guests, insights, and upcoming events. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time.